Welcome to another episode of Project Renegade. In this episode, we have easy bolt-on installation. That's what the package says. In this episode, we're going to install a throttle body spacer that was sent to us by Airaid. Big thanks to them for sending this out. This is going to kind of keep us in the performance kind of style videos that we've been doing on Project Renegade here. So if you haven't seen some of the previous videos, make sure to go back and check some of those out, because we've done an exhaust system, an intake system, quite a few other different performance style modifications. So this one is the Airaid throttle body spacer by Airaid. So what we'll do is we'll get some lights set up and the camera moved around, and we'll get this thing going. So here is the spacer. This is the packaging that it comes in. So we get all of our hardware and the spacer itself. Instructions enclosed. I was wondering if we were going to get instructions. It's all aluminum, anodized red. This thing's actually pretty substantial. It's got some weight to it. It has what they say is their patented helix design. I believe that's what it says. Yeah, here we go. Patented helix bore design. What it is, it's kind of got a swirl in here. It's actually kind of sharp. It says that it spins the air. First thing we're going to do is take off our performance intake here. We don't necessarily have to, but it makes things a lot easier. If you're installing this on a factory Liberty, then you would have your regular air tube. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and I'll probably just speed this up. If you want to know how to remove this system, like if you bought your Jeep and it already had it on there, check out my other video of how to install it and just do everything backwards. Now we need to remove the 3 bolts from the throttle body spacer. There's one here, one down here, and there's one hidden right back here behind this line. So we're going to have to remove the line. Set that out of the way. Then remove the 3 8mm bolts. And don't drop them like I almost did. And then the instructions say to remove the throttle cable and the cruise control cable. This probably would have been easier to do before unbolting the throttle body, but I'm going step by step as the instructions say. There we go. And we'll set the throttle body aside. This would be a good time if you wanted to go ahead and unplug everything and clean your throttle body, which I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've got my throttle body cleaned up. I'm just going to leave it disconnected and set off to the side for now. I think it'll make things a little bit easier, but you can definitely do this with it still connected. Now we need to go ahead and remove our cables from the intake itself. And then there's a small little retainer clip here. Take a pick and on this little metal retainer clip here, kind of get behind it and then pop it out. Be careful because it will just fall. Set it aside. And then, I don't know if you can see or not, but right underneath this cable here, there's a little locking tab that you need to push in. You push in on it, and then your cables can just slide out to the side just like that. We're going to take the bracket and orient it like that. But first, we need to take the bracket and put these spacers behind it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and drop a bolt through the spacer and the bracket to kind of just try to hold everything together here. So we'll kind of have it set up like this. The camera will focus. And then the nut plate will go onto the back side, just like this. And we're gonna put our new bracket here and try to get these started into the nut plate. The way that that is set up, I think I can go ahead and get this started out here, and then I should be able to slide it into place, I'm hoping. That would make things a lot easier. Okay, it can be done like that. And then tighten those down, which I believe are 14 millimeter. And now that it's on there, we need to pass our cables back through. There's one. There's two, and it clips in just like it did before. And it doesn't say in the instructions, but I'm pretty sure you can reuse your locking clip. Yes. Okay, there we go. Well, throw my light around a little bit. Now we need to take our power plate, as the instructions call it, and install the rubber O-ring into it. Then we're going to take our new bolts and washers and our plate. Get the plate oriented correctly on here. And then the throttle body. Put our new bolts through. Which, oddly enough, do not seem to be long enough. I think we might have an issue here. Okay, so just got back from the hardware store. Had to go get new bolts because, as you saw, the ones that came with the spacer were actually too short. I haven't got a chance to actually call Airaid and talk to them about it yet. I measured out the bolts that came with the throttle body spacer, and they are 50 millimeter, and I had to go pick up some 60 millimeter, and luckily my little local hardware store actually had the same exact bolt, just 10 millimeters longer. But if you actually do go and buy one of these spacers, you may get the wrong size bolts. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get everything set back up, take everything back apart to the last part where I was. So we'll pick back up there. Put the spacer on, and then put the throttle body on. I've got everything reattached to it now. Get it lined up. Take our new 60 millimeter bolts using the same washers that they supplied. And get these started. They don't give a torque spec for these, but you know, just use your own judgment. Not real tight, because remember, they are kind of tightening into plastic. Now we'll hook our lines back up. Go ahead and put the vacuum line on here. And so now all I've got to do is reinstall the cool air intake from K&N, and the install should be finished. I'll reinstall that, and we'll start it up and make sure that everything's fine. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video to disconnect your negative battery cable. You can get some check engine lights and stuff like that. I'm notorious for forgetting to remove the negative battery cable. But I'll go ahead and reinstall the intake system off camera. Like I said, if you want to see how that's installed, I already did a video on that, so go back and check that one out. So we'll be right back. Seems to be running okay. No check engine light, anything like that. Let's give it a little bit of gas and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this for a short drive and see if I can notice any difference. I don't think I'm really going to notice any difference, maybe a little bit smoother throttle response, but the age of this engine, it runs a little rough anyway, so any little bit of smoothing can help, I guess. So I'll take this for a drive real quick and see what my impressions are of it, and then we'll be back to wrap up the video. I'm back from my little test drive. The only thing I really notice, just to be completely honest, is it seems to have a little bit smoother of an idle. When I did the cool air intake and the jet chip, it seemed to kind of roughen the idle a little bit. When I put this on, it seems like the same amount of power. Doesn't seem like it really did anything for power-wise, but it did smooth out the idle. Well, I don't know if it actually smoothed out the idle, but that's the first thing I noticed when I was driving it around, is when I would come up to a stop, it had a lot smoother idle than it had before. So maybe that's a sign that it actually is doing something. It does something, not quite sure what yet, because like I said, the idle smoothed out, and that's the only thing I did was put that on there, and the idle has smoothed out, and it's had that rough idle for quite a while. As for the bolt issue, yeah, that is kind of a downer, that it came with the bolts that were too short. Now, I don't know if that was an issue with, you know, just like 05, 06, and 07, because I've seen some products that are for 5 and up and won't work for some below that, so that could be the issue with that. When people put a bolt-on part like an intake or a catback exhaust system or something like that, not that I'm, you know, putting down any of, you know, any catback exhausts or intakes or anything like that, because I'm really grateful for, you know, all the sponsors and stuff that have actually sent me stuff to do videos on. But a lot of people I've heard, you know, they'll say I installed a, you know, a cool air intake, and man, it made a huge, huge difference. You know, it made all kinds of power. Well, just a cold air intake without a tune or anything to tell the computer that you actually have it on there isn't really going to do a whole lot. Now, if you had a dyno, you will net, you know, some horsepower, but I'm not saying it doesn't add horsepower. It's just when you put those on there, you drive different. You know, you put your foot in it a lot more to hear that new exhaust or to hear that new intake. So in your head, you're like, oh, wow, this thing is faster, when really all you're doing is just driving it faster. But once you get a whole bunch of these put together, like I said, I keep repeating myself, you will notice a difference once you get a whole bunch of them put together, and you'll really notice the difference when you get a tune. When you get it tuned, the computer knows, hey, I have this, 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 and this, and it can use those to the full benefit, and that's where you'll really notice the difference. But anyway, that's enough rambling. That was my how-to install and slight review of the Airaid Powerade throttle body spacer. It's weird saying Powerade because I keep thinking of the drink. So yeah, that was it for another episode of Project Renegade. A huge thanks to Airaid for sending that out to me. Make sure to go check them out. I'll leave a link to that product down in the description, along with links to the Rocky X TV Facebook and Patreon page. So if you came across this and you're not one of my subscribers or you're new to the channel, make sure to go into my channel, check out a couple videos. You can go back and check out some of the other performance modifications that we've added to this Jeep and some of the stuff that I've done on another Jeep. So go in there and check out a video, and if you find one that you like, hit the like button. If you have something to say, leave it down in the comments, and if you find a couple videos that you like, don't forget to subscribe to my channel.